Our beloved brothers and sisters, one of the greatest tests in life is not poverty. It is not sickness. It is being disrespected by those closest to you. People often say, but they are your family. Yes, family deserves kindness. Family deserves patience. Family deserves mercy. But Islam never commands you to accept humiliation. Allah Azza created you with dignity. He honored you before you were born. He breathed life into you and declared that human beings are honored. So how can you allow anyone, friend or family, to crush the honor Allah gave you? Understand this clearly. Respect is not optional. It is a right. Some people confuse patience with silence. They think sabr means allowing people to insult you, control you, or emotionally destroy you. No. Sabr means remaining within the boundaries of Allah while protecting your soul. Even the prophets, peace be upon them, were opposed by their own people. Some were rejected by their families. Some were mocked in their own homes. Yet they never allowed oppression to define their worth. You are not sinful for setting boundaries. You are not arrogant for protecting your heart. And you are not disobedient to Allah for stepping away from repeated disrespect. Islam teaches balance. Be kind, but do not be weak. Forgive, but do not invite abuse. Be patient, but do not remain where your iman is slowly being destroyed. Sometimes disrespect does not come as loud words. It comes as constant belittling, silent manipulation, emotional pressure, guilt wrapped in concern, control disguised as love. And it hurts more when it comes from family, because you expect safety there. But listen carefully. Blood does not justify ZLM, oppression. Allah never tells you to stay in a place where your soul is bleeding. He tells you to uphold ties, not to tolerate cruelty. There is a difference between cutting off and stepping back. There is a difference between hatred and healthy distance. You can love someone from afar. You can respect elders without surrendering your dignity. You can make dua for people without allowing them access to hurt you. And sometimes the most powerful response is silence with strength, not arguments, not revenge, just calm boundaries. When you stop tolerating disrespect, two things happen. Either people change or Allah removes them from your life. Both are mercy. Never forget the Prophet, peace be upon him, was gentle, but he was never humiliated. He was kind, but he never allowed injustice. He walked away from harm, not because he was weak, but because he was wise. Your worth is not measured by how much pain you endure. Your worth is measured by your taqwa, your sincerity, and your obedience to Allah. So if you are being disrespected, speak with wisdom, set boundaries with dignity, and trust that Allah sees every tear you hide. Because the one who honored you never intended for you to live broken by others. Islam does not allow disrespect or humiliation. Allah honored every human being with dignity. Patience, sabr, does not mean tolerating abuse, whether it comes from strangers or family. Allah created every human being with honor and dignity, and this honor is not something that can be taken away by people unless we allow it to be. From the very beginning, Allah elevated the status of mankind and made it clear that human life, human feelings, and human respect matter. This means that no one has the right to belittle you, humiliate you, or treat you as if your worth is less than what Allah has already declared it to be. When you understand this truth, you begin to realize that tolerating disrespect is not a sign of righteousness, nor is it a sign of strong faith. True faith begins with recognizing the value Allah placed within you. Many people misunderstand the concept of patience in Islam. They think sabr means staying quiet while being insulted, controlled, or emotionally crushed. They believe that remaining silent in the face of disrespect will earn them reward, even if it slowly destroys their confidence and peace. But Islam does not teach us to accept ZLM. Patience is not about allowing harm to continue unchecked. Patience is about responding in a way that pleases Allah while protecting your soul from damage. There is a difference between enduring a test and allowing someone to repeatedly harm you in the name of family, culture, or obligation, even within families. Disrespect is sometimes normalized. Hurtful words are excused as honesty. Emotional manipulation is disguised as concern. Control is presented as love. Over time, the one being disrespected begins to doubt themselves, thinking that maybe this is what they deserve, or that speaking up would be sinful. But Allah never commands us to surrender our dignity. Maintaining family ties does not mean accepting humiliation. Honoring parents and relatives does not mean allowing them to crush your spirit or erase your identity. Islam is a religion of balance, not extremes. When we look at the lives of the prophets, peace be upon them, we see that they faced immense opposition, often from their own people and even their own families. They were mocked, rejected, and spoken to with cruelty. Yet they did not internalize that disrespect as a measure of their worth. They remained dignified, calm, and firm. They spoke when speech was necessary and walked away when silence was wiser. Their strength was not in how much pain they tolerated, but in how closely they remained connected to Allah through every hardship. Disrespect is not always loud. Sometimes it comes quietly, through constant criticism, comparison, or dismissive behavior. It comes through being ignored, undervalued, or spoken to without kindness. These small wounds, repeated over time, can damage the heart more deeply than a single harsh moment. Islam acknowledges the human heart and its fragility. That is why protecting your emotional and spiritual well-being is part of your responsibility. You cannot pour from an empty heart, and you cannot grow closer to Allah while constantly being broken by people. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not arrogance. When you calmly state what you will and will not accept, you are not rebelling against Islam. You are practicing wisdom. Boundaries do not require anger or disrespect in return. They require clarity, calmness, and trust in Allah. Sometimes setting a boundary means reducing interaction. Sometimes it means changing how much access someone has to your personal life. And sometimes it means walking away from conversations that only bring pain. None of this makes you ungrateful or disobedient to Allah. There is also a difference between cutting ties and creating healthy distance. Cutting ties is driven by hatred and pride, while healthy distance is driven by protection and peace. You can still make dua for those who hurt you. You can still wish them well, but you do not have to allow them to repeatedly harm you. Allah knows what is in your heart. He knows your intentions. He knows when you are stepping back not out of revenge, but out of survival and faith. When you stop tolerating disrespect, something powerful happens. Either the person begins to reflect and change their behavior, or Allah removes them from a position where they can harm you. Both outcomes are a form of mercy. Sometimes Allah protects you not by changing people, but by changing your proximity to them. This is not loss, it is divine protection. Remember that your worth is not measured by how much pain you endure in silence. Your worth is measured by your relationship with Allah, your sincerity, and your ability to uphold justice within your own life. Allah did not create you to live constantly wounded by others. He created you to worship Him with a heart that is firm, dignified, and at peace. When you choose not to tolerate disrespect, you are choosing to honor the dignity Allah Himself placed within you. Setting boundaries is not disobedience. You can be kind, respectful, and forgiving while still protecting your heart. Creating distance from repeated disrespect is wisdom, not sin. Setting boundaries is often misunderstood, especially within families and close relationships. Many people feel a deep sense of guilt when they try to protect their emotional space, as if drawing a line means they are being disrespectful, ungrateful, or disobedient to Allah. But Islam does not teach us to lose ourselves in order to please others. It teaches us to live with balance, wisdom, and consciousness of Allah in every interaction. Protecting your heart is not a rebellion against faith. It is part of honoring the trust Allah has placed within you. Kindness does not mean weakness. Forgiveness does not mean you allow the same wound to be opened again and again. Islam encourages mercy, but it also recognizes human limits. Allah created us with emotion, sensitivity, and vulnerability. When someone repeatedly disrespects you, especially after you have shown patience and understanding, continuing to expose yourself to that harm is not a virtue. It is neglect of your own well-being. Setting boundaries is a way of saying, I choose peace without abandoning my values. Many people remain in harmful situations because they fear being judged. They fear what others will say if they step back. They fear being labeled difficult, proud, or cold-hearted. But Allah does not judge you by people's opinions. He judges you by your intentions and your actions. If your intention is to protect your faith, your mental peace, and your ability to worship Allah sincerely, then creating distance from harm is not sinful. It is wise. Sometimes boundaries are not announced loudly, they are practiced quietly. You stop explaining yourself to those who twist your words. You stop engaging in conversations that always end in pain. You stop seeking validation from people who only notice your flaws. This silence is not weakness, it is strength rooted in self-respect. It is choosing calm over chaos and dignity over constant conflict. Islam teaches us to speak with wisdom. That means choosing the right time, the right words, and sometimes choosing not to speak at all. Not every disrespect deserves a response. Some situations are better handled by stepping back and trusting Allah to deal with what you cannot change. When you respond to disrespect with calm boundaries instead of emotional reactions, you protect your heart and maintain your character. Family relationships can be especially complex. There is love, history, obligation, and deep emotional ties. But even within family, there must be limits. Respect is not optional simply because of blood. Islam commands kindness to parents and relatives, but it never commands you to accept emotional harm. You can fulfill your duties while still protecting yourself. You can be respectful without being available for constant hurt. This balance requires maturity, patience, and reliance on Allah. Sometimes stepping back feels lonely. When you stop tolerating disrespect, you may feel misunderstood, you may feel isolated. But solitude with peace is better than company with pain. Allah is always near, especially when you are forced to walk alone for the sake of your dignity and faith. In those moments, Allah becomes your comfort, your strength, and your protector. He replaces what you lose with something better, even if you do not see it immediately. When you trust Allah and choose boundaries, your heart begins to heal. You regain clarity. Your prayers feel lighter. Your mind becomes calmer. This is a sign that you are moving toward balance. Allah does not want you exhausted by people. He wants you connected to Him. Anything that constantly pulls you away from peace and remembrance of Allah needs to be addressed with wisdom and courage. In the end, setting boundaries is an act of self-awareness and faith. It is recognizing that you are responsible for the condition of your heart. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how much access they have to your life. When you choose not to tolerate disrespect, you are choosing to live with dignity, trust in Allah, and emotional strength. And Allah never abandons those who choose what is right for their soul while remaining sincere to Him. True strength is balance, not silence. Islam teaches gentleness with firmness, love without self-destruction, patience without oppression, and respect without losing your self-worth. True strength in Islam is often misunderstood. Many people believe strength means staying silent no matter how badly you are treated, absorbing pain without reaction, and convincing yourself that enduring injustice is a form of righteousness. But Islam does not define strength as silent suffering. It defines strength as balance. Balance between patience and justice, between forgiveness and self-respect, between humility and dignity. When these are aligned, a believer becomes emotionally strong without becoming harsh or bitter. Silence can sometimes be wise, but silence is not always strength. There are moments when remaining quiet protects your peace and keeps you away from unnecessary conflict. But there are also moments when silence slowly teaches others that your boundaries do not matter. Islam never teaches us to normalize injustice. Strength is knowing when to speak and when to step away. It is knowing that your calm refusal to accept disrespect can be more powerful than any argument. The believer is not meant to be reactive, but neither is the believer meant to be broken. Islam encourages emotional control, not emotional suppression. When you repeatedly ignore disrespect in the name of patience, resentment quietly grows in the heart. Over time, this resentment affects your character, your worship, and your connection with Allah. True strength is addressing harm before it poisons your soul. It is choosing a response that preserves your iman, not just your image in front of people. Gentleness is a beautiful quality in Islam, but gentleness does not mean allowing yourself to be mistreated. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was gentle in his speech and actions, yet he was firm when boundaries were crossed. He did not allow injustice to continue unchecked. His gentleness was balanced with clarity and strength. This balance is what Islam calls us toward. Not emotional extremes, but principled responses. Many people fear that standing up for themselves will make them appear rude or disobedient, especially within families. But there is a respectful way to be firm. Strength does not require shouting, insulting, or humiliating others in return. It requires calm confidence. It requires choosing words carefully or choosing distance when words no longer work. When you protect your dignity without attacking someone else's, you are practicing Islamic character. Islam teaches us that self-worth is tied to our relationship with Allah, not to people's approval. When you stop giving people the power to define your value, you become emotionally free. This freedom allows you to forgive without forgetting, to love without self-destruction, and to be patient without becoming a victim. That is real strength. It is internal, not loud. It is steady, not fragile. Walking away from disrespect can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are taught that endurance equals virtue. But Islam never praises humiliation. Walking away is not always a sign of defeat. Sometimes it is a sign of wisdom. When a situation repeatedly harms your heart and distracts you from Allah, distance becomes an act of self-preservation. This decision requires courage, because it often means choosing peace over familiarity. True strength also means trusting Allah with outcomes. You do not need to force people to understand you. You do not need to prove your pain. Allah sees what people overlook. When you respond with dignity and restraint, you leave the matter in Allah's hands. And Allah is the best judge. He restores balance in ways you could never plan. Strength in Islam is not about control over others, it is about control over yourself. It is choosing not to become harsh because others are harsh. It is choosing not to lose your values because others have lost theirs. It is remaining kind without becoming vulnerable to repeated harm. This level of strength requires self-awareness, faith, and reliance on Allah. In the end, true strength is living with integrity. It is honoring yourself because Allah honored you. It is refusing to trade your peace for approval. It is understanding that patience does not mean staying where you are constantly disrespected. Strength is balance, and balance is a gift from Allah to those who seek Him sincerely. May Allah heal the hearts that were wounded in silence. May He grant us strength with humility, and may He teach us to love without losing ourselves. Ameen.